All right, we are back. Chris Mannix, Sergio Mora, he's the fighter. I'm the writer. Back in Los Angeles, and we have a nifty new backdrop for today's show, Sergio. We are sponsored by Netflix today. You can watch the Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford super middleweight showdown Saturday, September 13th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time standard, only on Netflix. So we are getting ready to head to Vegas next week, you and I. You have very limited responsibilities in Vegas, which always makes me nervous because God knows what you're going to get into. But we will be there during the fight week for Canelo Crawford.
I'm going to be playing roulette, watching the Prince imitation show, the Elvis imitation show. I'm going to be doing a lot of concert, a lot of sightseeing. And back to this Netflix thing. I mean, you're moving up in the world, Chris Mannix. Since I repeat, since meeting me, I mean, look, back when it was just a Chris Mannix podcast, your biggest sponsor was like the Happiness Book.
Blue Chew?
The Happiness Book or a Viagra commercial. Now you're with Netflix, you're with casinos, and you're with... It's a big deal, man. I think I'm bringing a lot to the table.
You have absolutely nothing to do with it, but I'm glad you can convince yourself otherwise. All right, we got a good show today. We're going to talk a lot about the Canelo Crawford fight. We've got Joseph Parker headed towards another big fight over in the UK. And later in the show, another former world champion is going to join us. Andre Ward, the former two-division world champion, boxing Hall of Famer. He is going to be on the call for Canelo Crawford for Netflix. He's going to join us to give us some thoughts on how that matchup shakes out. But Sergio, as we do every week, let's start with our winners and our losers. Give me your winner of the week.
I gotta give credit to the 1988 gold medalist in Park Si-hun, Korean fighter that gave back that medal that Roy Jones Jr. deserved to win. They robbed him in Korea in Seoul Olympics. He went back to Roy Jones Jr.'s hometown after almost 40 years, returned that gold medal. He deserved it. He earned it. That is an incredible story, and it redeemed everything about, what we thought of Park Si-hun. But what an incredible story, man, after 40 years returning that gold medal.
That was a brutal moment for Roy Jones Jr. As you mentioned, 1988, Roy clearly won the gold medal match over in South Korea. The judges robbed him that day. What was funny is that it was just put out there on Wednesday that the gold medal was given back, but it was actually given back like 2 years ago. This was a press release revealing something that happened 2 years ago when Park Si-hun came to Pensacola to give the title back to Roy Jones, or the gold medal back to Roy Jones Jr. So it's kind of an older story, but they just kind of put it out there this week. But a great moment certainly for Roy to at least symbolically get that win.
Everyone must have forgot.
Correct. That was going to be...
That was a Roy Jones Jr. song.
I know.
It went over your head. You don't listen to hip hop.
Y'all must have forgot. I know the song.
Never say y'all again.
The name of the song. My winner of the week is a guy that we talked to here in studio. It's going to be on the show a little bit later. Keith Thurman back in action once again, taking on Sebastian Fundora for the WBC 154-pound title. I think it's very cool to see Keith back at 36. He lost a lot of years, Sergio, and you as a fighter can certainly relate to that. To lose all those prime years, to only fight 2 times since 2019, that's got to be maddening for a fighter, especially when Keith was, before the Pacquiao fight, coming off big wins over Danny Garcia, over Sean Porter, really rising as a welterweight, and then to kind of fall off the map in the way that he did. It's got to have been tough for him. But now he's back, and he's taking on the Giant.
He didn't fall off the map. He made a lot of money off that Pacquiao money, just like Timothy Bradley.
Yeah, it can't last forever.
Just like a lot of these fighters, whenever you're making $5-10 million against a legend in Pacquiao, that money stretches, especially if you're Keith Thurman. Everyone knows he's a hippie. He plays the flute and the sandals and, probably smokes weed. The man is a poet and a philosopher, and boxing is something that he does on his side, and he's great at, but Thurman's incredible.
He's a poet who sits in sandals and smokes weed?
He's a poet, a pugilist, and a pothead.
Okay, great. Good to know.
There's some alliteration for you.
All right. Your loser of the week, what do you got?
My loser of the week has to be the commission. The commission, the British Boxing Board Commission, the UKAD, that actually, exonerated Jaime Munguia and went against VADA, which is the number one anti-doping in PED. They go against the number one guy, the number one Goliath of PED, of cheat catchers, and these guys go against them. and they ruin the name of Jaime Munguia just by calling him a cheater and then not calling him a cheater. This is a man's reputation, a champion. This commission or these commissions are going against it. It's a terrible look for anyone trying to catch a cheater.
Well, yeah, I actually agree with you on that one. So Jaime Munguia, to recap this, after the fight against Bruno Serras in the spring, he tested positive in VADA tests for exogenous testosterone metabolites. That was after a urine sample after his fight on May 4th. The A sample tested positive. The B sample tested positive. It was widely assumed that the UKAD would, and the British Boxing Board of Control, would slap Munguia with a 2-year suspension, which is pretty standard over in the UK. And that board had jurisdiction over that fight. To see Munguia apparently get off without so much as a slap on the wrist is really startling. He must have presented some pretty compelling evidence for the British Boxing Board to say, we believe you, this was a false positive, this didn't have anything to do with performance enhancers. But I was surprised. I mean, most people in boxing thought that Jaime Munguia's future was going to be fighting in Mexico, fighting on, because Mexico is kind of the Wild West. You can do whatever you want. It was going to be years before we saw Jaime Munguia back again. Now he's back in play. He could return to the ring before the end of the year. And now we could be talking about Munguia again against an Edgar Berlanga, against a Caleb Plant. He's right back in the mix.
Look, I never said Jaime Munguia was a loser because I really believe that, a guy like that, I don't see him as a cheat. So whether he did or he didn't, that scarlet letter's already on him. If you're called a cheat, then all of a sudden they just vindicate you. You're still going to be known as a cheat. The damage is done. The reputation, a man's name. So because of that, the British Boxing Board, the UKAD, all the reporters, everyone that just blemished and threw mud on the name of Jaime Munguia. All
Wait a
them
minute,
are
I don't
losers.
even know who you're pissy about. Like, I still believe Jaime Munguia did something. Why?
I don't. Well, I didn't believe it in the beginning. He doesn't look like a cheater. He doesn't look
mean
like
anything. Doesn't look like a cheater. So it's got to look like a duck and walk like a duck to be a duck in this circumstance. Have you not seen guys test positive who don't look like cheaters?
Look, normally the guys that are ripped, I mean, look at Conor Benn. The British Boxing Board suspended him for 2 years. He looks like a guy that's always on that. He was never
actually suspended.
He's always on that. All these guys have more muscle. They don't look like boxers. Boxers have a different type of frame. They don't have that muscular, round, buff weightlifter muscle. So that's what you get when you're cutting fat and then working out and building this lean muscle. But it just looks different. So yeah, I don't like it, man. I don't like it because I've been there. I've been there before where people look at you a certain way, they think of you a certain way, and then all of a sudden they don't. Call him a cheater if he is a cheater. Other than that, don't assume because it makes an ass out of you.
Nobody's assuming anything. He tested positive.
So then
for
why is he going to be able to fight again?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that because we have not had a public statement from the British Boxing Board or from UKID. I think they owe us that statement to further explain why Jaime Munguia is reportedly being kind of let off the hook there. All right. We are less than 2 weeks away from the biggest fight of the year between Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford. 168-pound undisputed championship fight. Canelo making a defense, his first defense of his second reign as undisputed champion at 168. And Bud Crawford coming in his first fight at super middleweight, trying to become a 3-time undisputed champion in men's boxing, unprecedented territory that Bud Crawford is trying to step into. Let's start with Crawford. I kind of led into it there. It's a legacy fight for him. What would a win for Bud Crawford do for his legacy? Cement
it. I mean, he's already going to be a Hall of Famer, but to be a 4-division world champion and be undisputed in 3, and you're skipping a weight class. You're jumping middleweight. You're jumping junior middleweight and middleweight to go to super middleweight to become a 4-belt world champion. That's incredible. He was the first boxer to become a 2-weight undisputed champion in the 4-belt era. Now he's daring to be great and do it in a 3rd weight class, skipping a division against the number 1 head honcho pound for pound guy in Canelo Alvarez. That's incredible. That's all-time great that we're talking about. Crawford is something a generational talent that we're witnessing greatness, especially pulls this off.
I think this will stamp Terence Crawford as an all-time great. A lot of people refer to him as an all-time great already because of the accomplishments that are on his resume, being a 2-time undisputed champion, being a 4-division world champion. These are accolades and honors that, earn you that type of recognition. But one thing that Bud has been lacking is the resume that is highlighted by Hall of Fame fighters.
Right.
And if you look at Bud's resume, who on that resume is definitely a Hall of Famer? Is Errol Spence definitely a Hall of Famer?
No.
He might be the closest one on that list. Down at 135, Ricky Burns,
no,
he's not a Hall of Famer. Israel Madrimov at 154, he's not a Hall of Famer. Now, I don't blame Bud for not fighting the guys that Spence was able to fight. He was a victim of circumstance. He was on the wrong side of the proverbial street, and he didn't get those fights against those big names. But on the flip side of the Sergio, how many Hall of Famers does Canelo have on his resume? He's got Floyd Mayweather on his resume. He's got Gennady Golovkin on his resume.
Miguel Cotto.
Arislandi Lara could be a Hall of Famer. He's on the resume. Miguel Cotto, Dimitri Bivol.
Yeah.
I mean, Shane Mosley, I don't even put on there because he was on the back end of his career then. But I'm talking about guys that he fought either in their prime or close to it. And so he's got a lot of them. Terence Crawford doesn't have that. If Terence Crawford can beat Canelo Alvarez, not only will he get the honor of being known as a 3-time undisputed world champion, but to me, he will firmly stamp himself as one of those all-time greats.
And every great fighter, it's not their fault. They clean out divisions and not have a Hall of Fame on their resume. I mean, look at Andre Ward, gold medalist, 2-division world champion, all-time great, Hall of Famer, retired undefeated, but he doesn't have a Hall of Famer. Oh, now he does. Carl Froch. Now he does. So he has one there, but he should have more. But that's the reason that Andre Ward, it's not his fault. He cleaned out divisions. He's a victim of his era, and there's a lot of fighters that are victims of their era. And that's exactly what Terence Crawford did. At 135, he cleaned it out. 140, 147, 154, now 168. That's what you need to do to chase being immortal. To do something that you're going to be forever remembered. Forget great the last 10, 15, 20 years. This is all-time great. This is like Roberto Duran type great. I know it sounds like blasphemy, but Roberto Duran was the first 4-division world champion from lightweight all the way to middleweight. Crawford's doing from lightweight to super middleweight in the 4-belt era. That is incredible. That is what you start looking at and really pinning down the numbers, saying, how the hell did he jump up that high and still look the part size-wise? And just talent-wise, and he's an older fighter also. That's another thing. Canelo's a younger fighter, a couple of years. Yeah, and a 37-year-old fighter at this point of his career, still at his pound-for-pound peak. Incredible, man. So just watch it, enjoy it while we can. Just watch the spectacle. Something great might happen.
What about for Canelo? This is a big bag of money that he's getting. And that's obviously why Canelo is taking this fight. It's a huge event that he's probably going to wind up making 9 figures for competing in. Is there anything more in it for him than that? Like, does he gain more by beating Crawford, who is really coming up 3 weight classes? Crawford has 1 fight at 154. Is this anything more for Canelo than a paycheck?
It's a win for Canelo because it's another mega event. I mean, if you remember when he fought in Miami at the Miami Stadium, it was incredible. So those stadium fights are special. And he always wanted to do stadiums, across the pond. Hopefully he still gets a chance to do it. But he's doing it here in the middle of Las Vegas. That's the first time that we're ever going to have a fight in a stadium in Las Vegas. Now Canelo, a Mexican, is going to be able to do it against a great fighter. So that is one thing. Of course, the money. This is incredible, life-changing, generational money. This man's probably going to be the next boxer billionaire. Like Floyd Mayweather Jr., Canelo's probably right behind him.
He's right there, Sergio. I was having a conversation recently with one of his business partners, and he was sort of laying out for me what the Canelo Alvarez empire looks like. I mean, it is a 9-figure empire. Like, you see the sponsorship deals that he has, the businesses that he's in. He does not need to fight. He does not need this. He does this because the fire still burns inside him for these fights.
Sí se puede, and I'm proud. I mean, that's a proud Mexican champion. But look, aside from that, the fact that it's not going to be like a pay-per-view, it's going to be on Netflix. You know, everybody in the world, especially here in the States, everyone has Netflix for free. So more eyeballs are going to be on Canelo.
Whose Netflix do you steal?
My neighbors.
Yeah, you steal. I knew you'd stolen that. Somebody's Netflix. Box. No chance he did.
I really do have.
I did. All right. On the flip side of this, a loss for Bud Crawford, if he comes up on the short end in this fight, does it mean anything?
No, that's the thing. It's a win-win for Crawford, and it's a win financially for Canelo, but still, this is a bad look if he loses to a guy coming up in weight. So it's a win-win for Crawford because anytime a fighter jumps up weight divisions like that, and he's going to be the underdog, he's not the power puncher that he was at lightweight or even at welterweight. He's more of a boxer now. And you're dealing with a guy that's never been knocked out in 67 fights, a guy with one of the best granite chins in boxing, a guy that's never been down. How do you win? You just got to pot shot him and you got to bloody him up and you got to win on decision. So Crawford has a tall task to climb. But that's why people are interested, because this is a mean dude with a mean chip on his shoulder that filled out nicely muscular wise and is confident as hell. And the way you beat Canelo is not by muscle or by power. You do it by boxing him.
Yeah, I don't think there's any real downside for Crawford. Maybe the downside is that if he doesn't win, we're still asking those same questions about all-time greatness. We're still asking, where's the Hall of Famer on your resume? Are you, are the accolades that you've achieved, do they measure up to the resume that you have? I think that's probably the only downside for Terence Crawford. He's going to make such a big amount of money that I think it's a total win-win. You kind of touched on it though, but for Canelo, would a loss be damaging to him? Because if you look at his resume, he has lost a couple of times, but they have been to all-time greats that were either in his weight class or above his weight class. Floyd Mayweather in 2013, he lost to, had the draw against Gennady Golovkin. Golovkin, a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. Then he has the loss to Dmitry Bivol. So he's never lost to somebody that you were necessarily stunned that he lost to. This to me would, even though the odds makers have it pretty competitive, this to me would be a surprise if Canelo lost. Does he have anything to lose in a fight like this?
No way. I mean, this is a man that's been fighting professionally since he was 15 years old. I mean, all the wear and tear on his body in 67 professional fights. And now in his mid-30s, still at his peak, still filling out stadiums, still being the number one head honcho in money. This man is always on the top three of the highest paid boxers. So no, this is just another, and it's not a money grab. That's the thing. It's not a money grab.
Of course it's a money grab. It's not insulting to say it's a money grab, but of course it's a money.
No,
what is it then?
You're dealing with another great fighter in Crawford, who happens to be smaller. But that's it.
Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Yeah, it happens to be smaller, yes.
But he's still a great fighter, unbeaten.
There's lots of guys Canelo could fight. He wants to go up to 175. David Benavidez hanging out there. He could do a rematch with Bivol. I know Bivol's hurt right now, but he could do that if he wanted to. The Jake Paul fight was on the table. That's a big event for him. No. I'm just saying, like, let's call a spade here. Like, this is a money grab for both of these guys. Maybe it's more of a legacy fight for Bud Crawford, but it's definitely a money grab. And I don't knock them for it because it's a huge event and they're both going to get paid an exorbitant amount of money. But it is a money grab.
No, I don't consider it a money grab because you're still dealing with greatness. Both these guys are special, unique, talented fighters. And Crawford has proved that even he carries his strength, maybe not power, but he carries his strength and he carries his confidence and that meanness, and he still finds a way to win. You hit him with one shot, he's going to return it with two. He's not going to let you get away with that. So can you imagine Canelo pressing him, which he is? He's going to be pushing him back. If Canelo lands a shot, Crawford's going to want to get it back right off the bat. And he has long arms. He's an ambidextrous fighter. He punches from both sides. That's going to give issues to Canelo because you're going to have to be fighting a left-handed fighter and a right-handed fighter, and he's equally good from both stances. So what is he going to do? Canelo's going to have an 8-week camp of fighting left-handers and right-handers. That's what he's going to have to do. But it's just too much to handle, too much to juggle. Canelo is great. He is the favorite. I think he probably squeaks out this fight, but the closer it gets, Crawford, man, I won't be surprised if he does something great and we witness something that no one expected.
He's talented enough for that to happen. But I do think, and we're going to get more into this next week, I do think you are significantly underestimating the weight difference and what it's going to mean for Terence Crawford to be carrying on 14 extra pounds of muscle, man. Like, he's going to look great at the weight. He's going to look better, I think, than Canelo.
Did Arizlandi Lara use muscle to
He was
almost
a natural
beat Canelo?
154.
Did Austin Trout use muscle?
He was a natural 154.
Canelo has
do this
heavy
all day
feet.
long.
Canelo has heavy feet. So you got to be
Didn't
nifty.
have a problem with Lara, though.
You got to have nifty with
Lara
the feet.
heavy
Crawford
feet.
has footwork, but he can sit down in the pocket and bang with you because he has long arms and
You
his
think he's
power
going to bang
extends.
with Canelo?
I think he's going to bang at times. Absolutely. I don't think he's just going to move in and out.
I don't think he's going to run, but I think he's going to box.
I think he's going to power box, and he's going to get the respect of Canelo. Canelo's not going to be able to walk in. And we know Canelo's not knocking out anybody. He hasn't knocked out anybody in 4 years since he knocked out Caleb Plant, and it took him almost damn near 12 rounds to do it. So he's not going to knock out Crawford. This is going the distance, and Crawford will be pot-shotting him in between those shots.
I think the power of Canelo is going to be evident during this fight. We're going to get more into that, of course, next week.
This fascination of power with you still
Power and
baffles
size.
me.
Size matters.
No,
Size
not in
regularly.
boxing.
Of course
Not
it matters.
in boxing.
Of course it matters in boxing. Size was the greatest differentiator when Canelo fought Dimitri Bivol. If Dimitri Bivol was a smaller fighter, Canelo would have beaten him. But
If
Dimitri
size
Bivol was
mattered-
able to back him up and use his speed because he was the bigger,
There's
stronger guy.
There's an exception to every rule, man. If size mattered, Manny Pacquiao wouldn't have won championships in 8 divisions. A 5-foot Filipino went all the way to 154 to become a world champion.
Well,
That's
and he
incredible.
found the right opponent when he went to 154. He fought Antonio Margarito. He found some right
All
opponents
I'm
at
saying
47.
is there's exceptions to every rule, and this is an exception here. Crawford is an incredible fighter. And if you listen to incredible fighters like Dimitri Bivol, who beat Canelo, he's picking Crawford to win this fight. If you look at other guys like Usyk,
Lots of guys are picking Canelo too.
that's why this is an incredible
Lots
fight.
of guys are picking Canelo. All right, we'll talk more about this fight next week when we are in Las Vegas. A couple other things I want to hit you with. It was reported this week that Joseph Parker, the former heavyweight champion, who's been on a great run as of late, is closing in on a deal to face Fabio Wardley. Wardley, of course, the UK star, fast on the rise, had some real good wins as of late. What do you think? Do you like this fight for Joseph Parker?
You know, Joseph Parker's on a run. You know, beating Zhilei Zhang, beating Deontay Wilder, knocking out Bacoli. Incredible run. But all three of those guys are big, strong, flat-footed guys that don't have speed. You know, they have the size, 6'5", 250 pounds plus. They have the big power. Fabio Wardley brings the size, the speed, the athleticism, the footwork, the momentum, everything else going forward for him. So yes, Joseph Parker is the giant killer, but this is more than just a giant. This is a young, fresh, up-and-coming fighter, kind of like a Moses Itauma, only slightly different. This is trouble for Parker, man. I think if Wardley comes right at him, you know, trying to knock him out, of course Parker has a chance because that's what Parker's great at. He's a giant slayer. But Wardley is so fast with his feet and good with his jab that I don't think he's just going to come right at a sly former veteran and a guy like Joseph Parker who knows how to fight these Goliath men. So I think Wardley is going to have the advantage, and I think he might even stop Parker. I think he becomes...
Oh, you're crazy.
Joe Joyce stopped Parker.
How many
right?
years ago was
It
that?
doesn't
How many
matter.
fights ago
And I think
was that?
Wardley is a better fighter than Joe Joyce.
I think I think Fabio Wardley's fine. I think he's a good fighter. He's 30 years old. He had that great knockout win over Frazier Clark. That was the career-defining performance. But look at his last fight, Sergio. He was getting outboxed by Justice Hooney before he knocked Justice Hooney out. So you're going to sit there and tell me that Joe Parker's not a better boxer than Justice Hooney? That Joe Parker doesn't have more power than Justice Hooney? Joe Parker has been a different fighter since Andy Lee has been in his corner. I know you're a big Andy Lee fan. You talk about him all the time. Joseph Parker has been a completely different guy in these recent fights. And you look at quality of competition. Joseph Parker has been in the ring with Anthony Joshua. Joseph Parker has wins over Wilder, Bacoli, Zhang. Joseph Parker's resume
all four of those guys fight
overshadows.
like Frankenstein. They don't have head movement. They don't have hand speed. They don't have foot speed. They don't have upper body movement. You just named 4 stiff, power punchers. That's why Joseph Parker was so good against him, because Joseph Parker fights really good in the inside and the outside. He has good upper body movement. He has that experience. He has footwork, and he has power. That's the reason he was able to do it. But with Wardley, he's going to be everything wrong for Parker. From the foot speed and the hand speed, the power, the size. Yes, he's hittable. Parker will land some shots, just like he knocked out Bacoli, looping shots over the top. But this Wardley guy can take a punch too. If he wasn't able to take a punch, then I would say, nah, Parker's going to handle him. But I just think he's all wrong, man. He's all wrong for a guy like Parker. Parker should be holding off. No one wants to fight Joseph Parker, right? Because he's on this incredible run, and he's just too much risk, not enough reward. But I just think a guy like Wardley and a guy like Itauma and guys like that, you're going backwards from the championship level. You're giving prospects a chance to put a great name on their resume when you should be doing something else. Keep waiting for another big name.
I think they're both contenders at this point. Fabio Wardley's 30, right? Like, he's right at that phase where he's looking for a big fight. He's developing a name over in the UK. Joseph Parker has developed that name as well. I think this is the exact right fight for Joseph Parker. If I was Parker, I wouldn't want the Itauma fight now. Usyk is still out there, and there's the potential that Usyk may want to fight Parker. This is a good fight. And I disagree with you entirely. I think Parker's the favorite in this fight. I think he wins this fight, and I think that gives him even more momentum going into a fight against Alexander Usyk. A fight that is happening on Saturday is the 130-pound title fight between Eduardo Sugar Nunez and Christopher Diaz. That fight will take place in Sinaloa, Mexico. I know you're disappointed to not be heading down there for that fight. Sugar Nunez, of course, undefeated, picked up his world title going over to Japan in his last fight. Christopher Diaz has been in with some big names in these lower weight classes, has not won many of these fights. So I think Nunez is justifiably a big favorite going in. But when you look at 130 pounds, the champions that are there, the contenders that are there, do you think that Sugar Nunez should be considered the number one guy at 130?
No, I think he's the number one puncher. I think he's the hardest hitting puncher at 130. But I think skill wise, style wise, technique, I gotta choose a Shockey Foster. I love watching him fight. He has a little bit of everything. I would maybe even put Lamont Roach ahead of Sugar Nunez. Nunez has power. He's good on the inside, excellent body puncher. He's compact, but he's a hooking type fighter. He's gonna have trouble with guys that can fight down the middle, with 1-2s and come around the guard and then get angles on you and bring speed. Nunez has pretty good hand speed, but not the hand speed that Foster has. So I think Shockey Foster is number one, and I would make a case for Lamont Roach being number two. I would love to see him slug it out with a fighter like those, but I think he's gonna be the underdog.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would put Lamont Roach at number one just because Roach had the performance that he had against Tank Davis. I know that was one weight class up, but you couple his world championship with that Tank Davis win, and I'd put him at number one. Foster's, I think, probably right there as well. Navarrete's sitting there. I think he's a little bit past his prime, though. And
I think Nunez beats Navarrete.
Yeah, he might be past. And look, I don't think Navarrete, he's been in a lot of wars in his time in boxing, so I would put Nunez above him. I'm still, to me, the jury is still out on Sugar Nunez because he's been beating the brakes off a lot of kind of mid-level guys. And he went over to Japan, and he fought a decent guy in his first world title fight. He went the distance for the first time. Got the win, clean, fair and square. But that kind of makes me wonder, like, is this power real, or is this power something that has been overinflated by big wins over lesser competition? Look, I think he's going to get another knockout. I think Diaz, while he's a good fighter, his best years have come at smaller weights. Look at the fights he had against Shakur Stevenson. I'm blanking now, but he fought a bunch of other guys in the Isaac Dogbe. He fought as well. I think he's going to get a knockout in that fight. But you put Nunez in with an Shockey Foster, or more likely with a Raymond Ford, who's a contender at 130 and has been calling for that fight with Nunez. I think it might be a little bit different, that outcome of a fight like that. So I think we still have a lot to learn about Sugar Nunez.
You have a lot to learn when it comes to boxers, like I'm saying. Yeah, I think Ford will give him issues as well. I just, when you can't fabricate that power, man. It's 27 knockouts in 28 fights. You can't make that up. I don't care if you're fighting, 50-50 fighters. It's still difficult to knock out fighters the way he's doing it. So whenever you have that high percentage knockout ratio, he's bringing something big to the table, man. All right. So, and he gets on the inside. He has the wide shoulders. He knows how to fight really like a tank. He knows how to fight like a tank. And guys like that, you can't punch in between the shots because they're very strong. They're little bulldozers. They're like pit bull crews, similar like that. And he brings the strength, and now he's a champion. So he carries himself like a champion.
I'm just saying it wouldn't be that unusual. It wouldn't be unique to have a guy blow people away with knockouts, and then when you get to a championship level, not be quite as strong as they used to be. Like Jeff Lacey, I think is a good example. Like Jeff Lacey coming up the ranks was blowing guys out. You go send him overseas, fight Joe Calzaghe, not quite. Yeah, but
look at what Joe Calzaghe ended up becoming. Retiring undefeated, a tall southpaw, one of the great fighters, B-Boy Jones Jr.
I'm saying, after that Calzaghe fight,
he didn't lose to a nobody.
He didn't, but he started to fight more on a championship level. He lost to Jermaine Taylor, he lost to Roy Jones, he lost to that might be the last Sullivan Barrera. I'm just saying, sometimes what guys look like early in their career is not what they really are. I just want to see more of Sugar Nunez against championship caliber opposition. I think Diaz is a good fighter. But to me, the real test for Sugar Nunez await next year when hopefully we get Ray Ford, maybe we get Navarrete, maybe we get Oshaki Foster. Those are the fights that I want to see. All right, when we come back, we'll be joined by the Hall of Famer, Andre Ward. All right, Andre Ward is a former 2-division world champion, boxing Hall of Famer, Sports Illustrated's Fighter of the Decade for the 2010s. Had to get that in there. On September 13th, he'll be ringside for the call of the Canelo Alvarez, Terence Crawford Undisputed Super Middleweight Showdown, which you can watch exclusively on Netflix. And Andre, I know you're calling the fight, but are you also unofficially scoring the fight as well? Because I'd imagine that's going to be a not fun job for whoever gets it.
Yeah, I hope not, because that's not that's not really something I enjoy doing. I always have a scorecard that I have to track. But it's tricky trying to watch a fight to commentate and then watch a fight to score. So I try to pass that off to somebody that's exclusively doing that. But we'll see. You never know.
Believe me, I get it. I could have. At DAZN, I could have the greatest call I've ever had, bring insights never before seen. But if I get one round wrong, Andre, one round wrong, I got to eat shit on Twitter for the next 3 or 4 days.
All the time, man.
It's all good. I say that, I bring that up because while this is a massive fight, massive event, I'm not anticipating it being some kind of Hagler-Hearns-esque showdown. I'm imagining something far more cagey, where rounds are far more competitive. As you kind of think about the story of this fight, how do you see it playing out?
Man, I have about 10 different scenarios, which is why I'm ready for this fight to be here already, because I'm not fighting, obviously, but I've thought about this fight a lot, and you have ideas, but we don't know. We just don't know. I personally think that given what is at stake and given where both of these fighters are in their careers, I mean, Canelo seems to want to keep fighting and, not stop anytime soon, but he does have a lot of miles on the odometer, and I'm not sure how much longer Terence Crawford wants to fight. Like they both need this, like they need it in a bad way. I think it's going to be a lot more action than we realize. Of course, there's going to be tactics and strategy, but I think that even that's going to be at a high level. There were certain spots in, the 3 Golovkin fights with Canelo where, they weren't just standing there. They had moments where they were, but there was a lot of, from Canelo, he's really good from the waist up with his defense, and he's slipping and rolling, and Golovkin's coming forward. And it was high-level stuff in certain spots. I think we'll see that. But I do believe that there are going to be some toe-the-line moments for Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford because they really, really need this fight.
When you look back at the history of super fights like this or high profile fights, I mentioned Hagler-Hearns. I don't think it's going to be that, but is there a fight that you can think of that you watched over the years that you could compare this to, that you think it's going to play out like?
It's tough. I don't. This is a class all by itself. And I say that because though Terence Crawford can box, I look at Terence Crawford as a puncher boxer. I look at Canelo Alvarez as a puncher boxer, not the other way around. If they move, it's either to rest or get in position to do what they really want to do, start a fight and land a punch that's going to change the course of the night. So I can't just say that Terence is going to outbox and we know what he's going to do. I don't know. You got to do. Both of these fighters are extremely stubborn, and you cannot be great for any extended period of time and not have that stubbornness about you. Even though Canelo Alvarez has some blemishes on his record, there's a perfectly good reason for each one, the draws and the losses. So he's been outclassed by Mayweather, but he's never been beat up and shut out and stopped. So his confidence and stubbornness is at an all-time high. The same can be said about Terence Crawford, and that's why I feel like, given the weight disparity, given their mentality, this fight is in a class by itself. And I just think that we're going to have high-level boxing because every punch is going to matter, because Terence does not want to lose to Canelo Alvarez and vice versa. But they're going to stand their ground at some point in time. Canelo wants to prove that I am the bigger man. And Crawford doesn't appreciate being called the smaller man, which is why you saw him press up on Canelo at the press conference to send a subtle, not so subtle message that you're not as big as everybody's saying you are. So I think it's going to be a great fight that's going to stand alone.
A couple of years ago, Jamel Charlo moved up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo, got blown out, wasn't competitive. Now, it's not unprecedented for a smaller guy to beat a bigger guy. Sugar Ray moved up a couple of weight classes to beat Hagler. Obviously, Roy jumps up to heavyweight to beat John Ruiz. But more often than not, size does matter. Weight classes, as they say, do exist for a reason. Tell me in your mind why Crawford is the kind of fighter that can buck those odds, that can do the unexpected and jump up 2 weight classes in his first fight and beat someone like Canelo.
A few of the things are the things that we see, the tangibles, skill set. Like Terence wants to fight before he boxes, but we've seen him box. I think one advantage he has that's not being talked about enough is that Canelo Alvarez has been preparing for 2 different fighters. Terence Crawford has been preparing for one. You don't know if he's going left-handed or right-handed. That starts to weigh on you throughout camp because you just don't know. Even throughout the course of the fight, he can easily switch. I've had success. Canelo could be having success with Crawford being in the right-handed stance, and all of a sudden now I'm fighting southpaw. So that's a huge advantage for Terence Crawford. But I think what it really boils down to is the stuff you can't see. I think it's extreme competitiveness. And for guys that are competitive, it's like win or die. And that's not just a tagline. You won't actually die, but it's win or feel like it was a death. And I got to replay this and live with this and have this on my mind and on my resume and this staying forever. And for a truly competitive one, you don't want that. So I think that's really going to be the difference maker for him. It's not Bomac's going to do his job. Saul's going to do his job. Red, the team's going to do their job. But it's in here and it's in here. There's going to be moments where I think he's going to step on the gas, and it's going to be exciting to see Canelo step back and see what happens.
You're a guy, though, Andre, that when you made your move to 175, you did it on your time, and you were meticulous with how you got to the point where you were ready to fight a Sergey Kovalev. You were ready at that point physically to take on a challenge like that. Do you think that Bud truly understands kind of what those extra 14 pounds are going to feel like, what an opponent that hits at a 168 level hits like?
He won't fully know until September 13th. But he's done the best he can, but that he can to do the math and project. And man, I fought bigger guys before. Man, I actually walk around about 185, 188. Man, I sparred a heavyweight last camp. You do the best you can. And I don't think Terence Crawford. I was gonna say I don't think Terence Crawford would have took this fight if he didn't think he could win. But I truly don't believe that Terence believes that anybody can beat him. So you got to show him. And that's the beautiful thing about these fights is we have a date. So we can do this and we should do this. But ultimately, you guys got to figure it out. And I think weight is going to be a factor, but I don't think it's going to be the primary factor in this fight if Canelo wins.
What do you think the primary factor would be?
I think it's the total package. I think he's going to have to box when it's time to box. And boxing may be right in front of Terence, but not getting hit. I think he's going to have to, land the right shots to get the respect that he needs to get, and really make the necessary adjustments along the way. Got your base game plan, but what about the nuances? Hey, man, he didn't like that. Let me go back there. Oh, man, this isn't working. Let me go away from that and come back to it in 2 rounds. It's all that kind of stuff. It's the same for both fighters. Mm-hmm. Like, what is the game plan? How did you prepare? But then we got to watch all these small adjustments and nuances that you do along the way. That's going to be the difference maker.
As crazy as it sounds, if Crawford had been coming off the Spence win and into this fight, I might be more optimistic about his chances than I am, because I saw the Madrimov fight and I saw a guy that reduced his power punch output, that was more judicious with his punches. When you watched the Madrimov fight, did that tell you anything about Crawford at an even higher weight class?
A little bit. I don't put as much into it as I see a lot of people putting into it. This is boxing. So Bernard Hopkins fights 2 life or death fights with Jermaine Taylor, and then all of a sudden he jumps up 2 weight classes and beats Antonio Tarver. How does that happen? So I think Madrimov was, in many respects, I think it was a style thing. Madrimov did not have a lot of fights, but he has a deep amateur pedigree, and he has a style that is going to be difficult for anybody. He's in your face, but he's not. He doesn't stop moving. His timing is great. Plus, you have Terence Crawford moving up in weight. And I didn't think that, I think Terence did what he had to do down the stretch, and I watched for that. Like, man, you need these next 2 rounds, and you saw him bite down and do more than what Madrimov did, which is championship pedigree type stuff. But he didn't look sharp to me, and his body didn't really fill out like I thought it was going to at 154. Don't know what that is. So you have to have the Madrimov fight as a reference, but it's not the end-all be-all. That was a stylistic thing, I think, the majority of the time, and you have to believe that Terence Crawford is going to be better this time out. And the same can be said about Canelo. If you think that Canelo Alvarez is going to look the way he did in his last fight against this guy, we're sadly mistaken. Canelo is crafty, right? Like, not just XO crafty, but it's similar to a football team playing a preseason game. I'm not pulling out the playbook against you. I don't have to pull out my full playbook against this guy. I know you're ringside. I'm good enough to fight this fight. Yeah, it's close, but I'm going to do enough to win, and I'll see you September 13th, and I'll be a lot different September 13th, and that's what Canelo's going to do.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think people just can't fathom the circumstances of that last fight. Like, fighting at 6 o'clock in the morning local time was crazy. Fighting a guy that I've never seen a fighter be that disengaged. I mean, clearly thought he could win that way doing what he did, but I've never seen that. That just, I don't look at that as being a sign that there has been a precipitous decline in Canelo Alvarez. I think there still is a pretty high level guy that's in there.
For sure.
The last thing for you is, if Terence Crawford can pull it off, if he can beat Canelo, become undisputed at 168, 3-time undisputed champion of the world, where does that elevate him in your mind? What does that stamp him as if he wins this fight?
That's tough, but he's in that all-time great category. I think he's already in the conversation, but it just goes. It's just more secure, his legacy. It's just another stamp. 3-time undisputed is crazy. It's crazy.
I think it puts him in the all-time great. Like, he's clearly great. He's just struggled over the years to find the opponents to prove it against, right? Yeah. Like, the number of Hall of Famers on his resume isn't all that deep. This would be a surefire first bout Hall of Famer. I mean, it would be unquestionably the biggest win of his career. And it would put him on kind of, I don't know if it's a Mount Rushmore of all-time greats, but it would be, in my opinion, take him 2 to 3 levels up on the all-time great list.
For sure. I got no comeback on that.
I love it. Andre, again, congrats on the gig, man. September 13th, live, exclusively on Netflix. I have called the fight of Canelo in a stadium, that AT&T Stadium fight from a few years ago. It's electric, man. It's going to be awesome, an awesome atmosphere in Las Vegas. Good luck to you, man, and always appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, brother. Thank you.